Hello and welcome to Watchdogwargaming. This is the third and final easy build guide, and today we're going to be looking at the American Elco patrol boat and the Higgins patrol boat. Again, these are plastic kits that were part of the Warlordgames Cruelseas small ship naval combat game, but also recently sort of two well-known magazines, certainly within the UK, the Wargaming magazines, released a number of these sprues. So join me sort of now to go through the how to build these two patrol boats. Now, just a quick thing. So these patrol boats were most US built, but they did come across to the British Navy as part of the Lend-Lease or handed over to them. So a lot of these actually saw in British use in service in the Mediterranean and around the British coast as well. So you've got a choice. You can either do these as the Americans versions, and which sort of with use in the Pacific and places where the Americans served, or the British. So one thing I did find very useful was this particular guide, which was the British Motor Gun Boat 1939 to 1945 by Osprey, and that did explain a lot about the Lend-Lease scheme and the Elco and the Higgins boats in British use, which I found very, very interesting. So less of the waffle, and let's have a look at the how to build the first boat, which we'll have a look at the Elco. So for all the new people who haven't done any model making before, you're going to need a bit of a few tools that will help you make the model. In no particular order, we've got some snips, a standing knife or sharp blade, a file or emery board. Not forgetting some plastic cement, plastic glue, and if you're like me, a bit of dodgy fingers, some tweezers are also useful as well for helping with those little small parts. Also as well, you need your plastic sprue, but what I always do with the plastic sprues, no matter what I'm making, I just give it a quick dip in some warm water that's had some with some washing up liquid, just to get rid of the grease that's actually on here, which is part of the manufacturing process, and just wait till that's dry. But just be careful that you have got little bits on here, so if you're a bit of over vigorous with your washing, you just need to be a little bit careful on that. Okay, so let's have a look at our first boat, and what we're going to be doing is the get the look at the first one, which is going to be the Higgins boat. Now, the Higgins boat is, if you look on your sprue, it's the one with, it's got the two twin turrets either side of the wheelhouse. So this is what we're going to start with. So what we'll do is clip carefully away the hull from the sprue. Just be mindful you have got some detailing along the actual side of the hull, so just be really, really careful. And what I'll do is just slightly trim the residue away that's left. Just be mindful not to cut my fingers. You should technically cut away from yourself, but I'm just trying to be really, really careful. There we are. And then sort of, because there's a little bit left, I'm just going to use the emery board just to go over it and just get it down, clear it a lot better. And there we are. So that will do for me. Nope, in fact, no, it won't, because there's a little bit more there. Perhaps I might have to go Maybe later on with a bit more with the blade just to get a little bit more off, but it's okay for the time being. So let's just put that one side. So that's the hull. So with this as well, so let's have a look at the sprue. So this has got, if you have the picture of it, so this has got, as you can, if you look on the actual hull itself, it's got these supports there, and these are for the torpedoes. So it's got four little torpedoes on there. Was it 4 little ones? I can just make sure that I give you the right information. Yeah, so yeah, it's got 4 torpedoes, but it's the bigger of the two. So on the actual sprue, there's 4 little ones, which if you look on here, they'll plug into the other boat. So ones we're interested in are these ones here. So just be mindful of that. In fact, what I might do is actually, so we don't confuse things, is just take snip, 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 and put that one to one side at the moment. So the things that we're going to need are the 4 torpedoes, and see the 4 torpedoes and these ring turrets here, and also you've got these are the masts. One has got it's like a early form of radar on the top there, and then this one hasn't. So I believe the British Navy ones didn't have the mast, and that's probably one that I'm going to use in this case. Right, and then so if you look on the holes here as well, so it's going to have the torpedoes. It's going to have a rear-facing gun, which is this one here on the sprue. The 4 torpedoes, and then it's got the twin-mounted Brownings. Now, on the British boats, they did take the Brownings off and actually put twin Vickers medium machine guns on there as well. So that'll be interesting. Okay, so what I'll do is we'll start off with the torpedoes first. Again, it's up to you what order you want to make the model in. It doesn't help if you're fingers and thumbs. Hopefully the other 2 videos that I've done on the e-boats and the MTBs have been of use for you, and now you've got lots of ships to use in your Cruelseas wargaming or other rule sets. Right, let's just clear off the little bit of plastic that's actually on there as well. I'm just going to be careful because when I put a little bit of weight behind it, it does bend the plastic slightly. So just trying to be careful. So on that. What I might actually do is just use the emery board or the metal file just to trim it off, but I'll try and get as much as I can off at this point. When you're making yours, you can just spend a little bit more time making them. So they are very, very fiddly. You're probably wondering why I'm wearing gloves. Well, it does help for the grip, but also I've been a lot of painting the fence recently, and I've got lots of paint all over my hands, which doesn't seem to want to go, so it's very unsightly at the moment. I'm sure you just don't want to look at my dirty hands. Right, so let's get this right. So if you look, so on the torpedoes, you can see where the stand is and where they actually fit in. So if you look on the top of it, you've got the main torpedo tube, and then on top of it is another long pole or something running on top of it. So that needs to be on the outside of your torpedo. So this one is a one from on the outside here. So let me get the glue. You'll see what I mean in a second when I've glued it in. It'll go, ah, okay, I see what he's on about. Use a bit of extra thin because it dries quickly, and with the brush you can be a bit more accurate with your painting. Now, see what I mean? So on the top you've got the main torpedo at the bottom, and then you've got the there's a long sort of that tube that's running on there. So that should be on the top, but actually on the outside of your ship. Got it? Perfect. Right. Let's quickly do the other ones. Line them up. You might have to, with these first ones, it might be a little bit of a tight squeeze to get them on, a little bit fiddly. Oh, hang on. Let's get them up. Let's just make sure I've got it properly. Yep, so that's flush and that's flush. That needs to be pushed back a little bit. And there's more of an angle. You see what I mean? So get the tweezers and straighten that up. Straighten that up. Straighten that up. There we are. So there's actually a visible gap. There's now a visible gap in between the torpedo tubes. And let's do the other side. Oops, a bit too much there. That's fine. Come on, you know you want to sit on it. There we are. Have I done that properly? There we are. Make it a little bit more of an angle. Oops. Right. Just make it a little bit more. So there's an angle. So we've got a gap between both of them, and that one and that one and that one is equal to that one. Just move that one across a little bit. There we are. That'll do. So there we are. So that's the torpedo tubes on there now. So the only thing I've got left is the rear gun and the two turret-mounted machine guns. Oh, and the mast as well. So what we'll do now is quickly clip out the two turret machine guns. In fact, while we're here, so what I'll do is I'll use that one, and we'll also take out the small gun. Now be careful when you're doing this one because that barrel looks really, really thin, and yeah, so I've just clicked and there's a little bit of, be careful. There we are. That will do. Right, so let's get these guns fitted. Let's just make sure which way they go. So be careful with the glue. So I'll just put a bit of glue around the rim on that side, and a bit of glue on the rim on that side. Let's get these guns fitted. It's up to you where you want to find, which way you want to put them, facing forward or facing to the side. I'll just put an angle in between. Yeah, I have even seen some people who've magnetized these guns as well, so they can move them around. But this sounds way too fiddly for me, so we'll just have it like that. And then the rear gun. In fact, before I forget, right, so a lot of these guns do have options for crew. So you see this little bit here, that's actually two gunners standing on a platform. So what we'll do on the back ones, just to show you, is so I've already glued it, put that in there. Just put a little bit of glue on the bottom of that. So push the barrel of the gun so it's flush. Oh, all fingers and thumbs, you see what I mean? So so you now got the batter gun on a turntable with two crew, and then that fits in nicely in there. I have broken my first rule and I forgot to dry fit everything first. So yeah, it is very, very tight. So what you could use, if you've got your pin drill, is just make that hole a little bit better. But there we are. So if you can see all that, so after all that, you now got the gun barrel and mount on a turntable with two crew, and that's for your rear gun. Yeah. Okay, and there is one thing extra that I've just remembered, is at the bottom right here, there's I think that's the room for a depth charge, and that'll be the last thing that's actually on here as well. I think it's a depth charge, but it looks like a depth charge, so let's just call it a depth charge. Put that in there, because this is going to be fiddly. In fact, it actually looks more like an exhaust pipe than a depth charge, so perhaps that's what it is. And last but not least, so that's all now fitted in. And then last but not least, it's the mast with the lights on it. So let's give it a quick going over. Again, it doesn't not clear where it goes, but I would put it back to the back of the wheelhouse, but not right close, because so this is going to be a guesstimate where I'm going to put it. So let's get those. So there we are. So that's my guesstimate. So it's not right up against it, and it's not right on that rear hatch. And I've tried to align it with the front of the bow of the ship, and there we are. So that's that is your Higgins boat completed. So on to the next one, which is the Elco. Now the one with the Elco is an interesting one. In American guys, it's actually fitted with rockets, and so okay, so on to the next model. So hopefully that's helped you with that one, build that one. Quite a simple one. There is a couple of fiddly things, which was, as you saw, it was that the mount platform for the gun. But there we are. So on to the next one. So what I'm left with should be everything else for the Elco boat. So as before, let's clip off the hull first, away from the sprue. Just being that careful. Let's just take off a little bit the bit I missed. Well, there's a lot more to this particular boat, so it's as you can see from the sprue, there's a lot more guns on it and torpedoes and options, I think I would call it. But we'll just do the basic fit, and this one I'll do is as the American version. So we've got a forward gun, a midships gun, 2 turrets, powered turrets, and then we've also got a rear gun as well. But also we've got mountings for the smaller torpedoes, and again there's a another. I believe that's probably for the is that the rear mounted? Well, we'll have a look. I think it's the. Yeah, so it's the rear mounted, that's depth charge stroke exhaust pipe. But yeah, so like I said, this comes with rockets. So here's the rockets element, which goes on the sides. Here's your Brownings. Was that an Okeron cannon? So that's another option. You've got the small torpedoes and the rear gun, as we and platform as we did on the other one, and then we've got the mast. So you've got we'll use the mast with the radar on this one. So let's start with the torpedoes first. Yeah, on the British versions, it looks like they've, from what I was reading, is that they it's more used as a gunboat than a torpedo boat. Okay, so you can see from the hull where the smaller torpedoes are going to fit with on the side here. So let's fit them in one by one. Like using these smaller ones, so you this type of cement glue with the pipette and the brittle brush at the bottom, so you can actually get a better and cleaner sort of glue fit. Normally, if you just use the traditional tube, as I used to up until recently, there's a potential you can get a lot of glue everywhere. This is rather fiddly. So let's get these fitted. Let's must make sure that I've put them in correctly, because there is a proper way for them to fit. Just brings them up slightly. Is that in or is that in? No, it's not in. Right. Let's have a proper look. So this potentially, if you look at the on here, the stand is on the outside, so this is for, that's better. Again, you could dry fit these before you glue them in, just to make sure they actually are in the right place, and that is in the right place at the moment. So yes, so on the bottom of the little dinky torpedoes, you do have to put them into the stands in a certain way, otherwise they won't fit in properly. So again, here we are. Let's do the other side. Last one now. There we are. So they're all sat correctly. It should be pointing out a little bit during on the sides there. Brilliant. Well, wasn't that fiddly? So hopefully you'll have a bit better time than myself. So we'll start at the rear and then work ourselves forward. So we'll, as we had in the earlier gun, we have another stern-mounted weapon. So we'll quickly click that out of the sprue, being careful not to cut the barrel. So on this one it's going to be a little bit fiddly. So I've just noticed there's some excess sprue on there as well, excess plastic, so let's just be careful and just drag it. I don't want to break the end of the barrel off. Oops. And also, if you could see at the end of this end as well, there's an excess amount of plastic, so we might have to either drill the stern hull out, or what I'm doing is just try and file it down a little bit. Because remember, this has got to fit in there. So if you've got one of these are pin drills, and these are quite useful. It's just that you make the hole a little bit bigger. There we are. So let's make that hole a little bit bigger. And we'll try it a different way first. We'll put the actual gun platform in first. The two little chappies pointing out to the back, and then so you can either do it as self-assembly or put it in. So there we are. That went in actually a lot quicker. So it does make sense just to drill it out a little bit more. So they are useful. And now what we'll look at is the two turrets. So again, same as the earlier model. The twin turrets. quickly give them a run over with the emery board. So quick glue around the rim on that one as well. I do love the detail on these boats. You know, you've got the sort of life rafts and everything else in there as well. So there's plenty of detail for you to paint later on. So again, I'm just going to have these at certain angles pointing out. How you want them is up to you. So there we are so far. Again, you'll spend a lot more time clearing the guns, clearing the sprue off these. These ones are a little bit needed a bit more work on them. So let's start on that. Is another gun. Which is this one here. As you can see on the sprue, it's that one there. So these are very, very delicate. Rubber glue on the inside there. Again, if it's fiddly, get your tweezers and pop it in. Now, I'm just going to have the barrel facing forward on that one, because if I had an angle pointing out, it possibly might get caught and snapped off. Oops, there we are. So there's that one. And now we have the bow gun. So the bow gun is, if you look on here, this is the bigger of the crew mounted weapons. Lovely. Just looking at this now, this must have whacked out some firepower. And then last but not least, we've got the two side rockets. So these are the rockets here, if you can see them. Yeah. Now I've just seen where the holes are, where these are got to go, and again, this is gonna be a little bit fiddly. In fact, what we'll do that is I'll just make sure that this rear mounted exhaust pipe, let's call it an exhaust pipe, fits in. So we don't forget that. In fact, just notice I've put it in the wrong way, because we need the exhaust bit facing to the rear. Yeah, Mum, you know you want to go in there. There we are, it's in, just straighten it up. Perfect. Right, you got that so far. And then last but not least, these are the guns. So the rockets. So they have got a little dinky sort of plug there, and if you look on there, this is where the male to female bit goes. Just have to make sure that it's actually on the other side as well. Yep, so there's that's as well. I can see in the long term this is going to be probably one of the first things that gets broken. If you're doing the Royal Navy version, I don't think these were actually fitted. Royal Navy versions fitted with these side rockets. A lot of them were actually American weapons were taken off, or the ships came with very little on it, and then it was armed with British weapons. Could be wrong, but it's not something that I remember reading in that that book. But these were used in the Pacific. So there we are. So that's all the armaments moved in. Last they've got to do is put the mast in. So you've got to make sure you use so in there, this was like one of the early forms of radar. So this would fit just behind the wheelhouse. So again, this is possibly going to be a little bit of a tight fit. Let's just make sure that I get it in the right place. Right, let's have a look. Okay, so this particular one, I've had to fit it because there's no room there. So we've just had to fit it in that gap there, which is about right. Just make sure it's squared off. There we are. So finally, that's the Elco boat. So this is probably one of the fiddliest boats to make with all the different weapons on it. So you've rockets and everything else. But there you have it. So that is now the complete series of the Warlordgames Cruelseas models for their E-boats, MTBs, and the American patrol boats as well. So I'm glad. Also, thank you very much for joining me. It's been much appreciated. Again, what I'm going to do now is work on painting them, some painting guides. So there's the final products, if you want to have a look. So that's what you just... So hopefully some of you may have got sprues off, I think it's Wargames Illustrated. This month I've got the lots of these boats in various sprues. I know in our local WH Smiths, a lot of them seem to be these patrol boats. So there we are. This, that guide what I've done today should help you put it together. If you take your time, it probably fit a lot better and a lot cleaner on the ear as well. Just mindful of when you take off all the detail, or the spare plastic on the side, that you just be careful that you're not damaging any design detail on the hulls, and also the torpedoes, just to make sure that you take off any spare plastic that shouldn't be on there. And just be really careful about these guns when you're clipping them off or when you're fitting them, because they are very fragile. But there we are. So that's your Elco, and so that's the Elco, and that's the Higgins patrol boat. So again, so like I said, thank you much for your time, much appreciated. Don't forget to like and subscribe below, and we'll catch up with you very soon. Bye for now.
Squad morale restored.